Over Dokkan's lifespan, many hype units have come out to drastically shake up the meta, along with the community's perception of these units, along with the meta. Today, I'm going to be shifting the type of content that I do from a factually based, algorithmically correct top 10 video to 10 of the most hype releases in Dokkan history. And while this video is of course still backed by the algorithm, which has carefully calculated, of course through the rigorous algorithm, the algorithm also understands that a list like this is highly perception based, and there will probably be follow-up videos to this list eventually. So in that note, let's talk about 10 of the most hype releases in Dokkan history. And coming in at number 10, we have Tech Super Gogeta, the LR which released for Tanabata of 2021. Now, this unit released as sort of STR LR Super Vegeto's counterpart with the Gogeta. In base, they were largely the same as STR Super Vegeto's base form, the base Goku and Vegeta, where their super attack effects were exactly the same and their passives were largely the same. But they also get a high chance of creating rainbow key spheres, along with getting extra key per key sphere rather than getting extra key per take key sphere. They also had the exact same link set, and their differences come in upon the active skill fusion condition, where Tech Super Gogeta's is turn 4 70% or more, in which they fuse into Tech Super Gogeta, playing a great animation with a banger OST, in which Tech Super Gogeta has some pretty good super attack effects. He introduced the nullification of enemy super attacks. He's got a 5-turn scouter along with 5-turn of 30% damage reduction, and he basically fully heals you since you have to be above 7% HP to pop his active skill. And then he has a 70% chance to crit. It's guaranteed super effective against all types, and he's pretty good. Good link set, blah blah blah. But when Tech Super Gogeta came out, man, it was hype. They really did him justice, right? His animations were stunning, as I believe this was the first Super Gogeta with the super dope, good-looking animations. PyCon unit super attack doesn't really count. And overall, this celebration was a huge success from a hype standpoint. And while it led to many LRSTR Vegito versus Tech Gogeta debates, there's no denying that people were very excited on JP when he came out, and very excited for his release on Global when he came out. You can nitpick this guy's kit, but Dokkan definitely packed the heat with this one, man. That's gonna be Tech Super Gogeta. He's gonna come in at number 10. Let's go on to number 9. Now, coming in at number 9, whether you want to admit it or not, it's the Superhero Celebration. LR Physical Ultimate / Beastless Gohan or whatever, and then LR Orange Piccolo, of course. Now, I believe the hype really died out once we actually got our hands on these units and figured out that, you know, Beast Gohan was only an active skill, and people were also very disappointed that LR Orange Piccolo was only a giant form. But of course, you know, we figured out that that was actually pretty good eventually, and people were also very disappointed in LR Ultimate Gohan's sort of oddly designed kit. While he was very good, he also had a lot of design limitations that kept him from achieving that peak level as a top 5 unit in the game, which he was not on release. Definitely in the perennial top 10, but he was definitely not a top 5 unit. That all aside, everyone was very excited for whenever Superhero was supposed to come out. Dragon Ball Legends had recently got their Beast Gohan, and he was dominating their meta, and everyone was very, very, very eager for him to drop in Dokkan. And kid aside, they really cooked on his active skill animation. That active skill animation is probably still the single best animation in the game, nigh 2 years later, and that's just because it's beautiful. And Superhero is some of the best that Dragon Ball has ever looked in the history of the franchise. Overall, this was a very good celebration. The animations were, while a little choppy, especially on LR Orange Piccolo's giant form transformation, they were still very good. They're going to come in at number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Coming in at number 8, we have LR Blue Goku Goku and Evolution Blue Vegeta, which came out for Tanabata of 2020. Now, these guys were really good. They were a really great unit when they came out. Top 5-ish for sure. But just when their animations dropped in the Twitter leak and you just saw how good they were, especially their active skill. Like, people's eyes were literally bulging out of their skulls. The animations on this unit were precisely, like, just done miraculous. They were just done immaculately. And while they came out in the meta of them releasing really bad categories for some reason, this was still a super hype release. I remember that Global was getting ready to push into the anniversary and get the blue fusions, and then all of a sudden this unit drops and it's like, well, damn, look at these guys, man. Their animations are amazing. Their damage is crazy. They're so drippy. The drip is insane. They're just a very aesthetically pleasing unit. We also had not gotten a lot of representation with the really good animations for the Tournament of Power units, and we were just starting to do that, and you can just tell, like, the player base was really excited for a unit like this to drop, and they did not fumble at all. Like, this was just perfect from top to finish, right? Like, you could say they could have been better, but they were damn good. A super exciting release, right? They had obviously really good key links, a super cool active skill, a really good condition on it too, 50% or below, no terrible restrictions. Essentially, this is exactly what the doctor ordered, and it's, hey, great. Their super attacks are also just some of the best in the game's history, right? And, you know, now that they got their Easy A, and their Easy A is amazing, like, they're just back in the highlight of the meta right now, and this, just, what a greatly designed unit. Just, mwah. Chef's kiss. They're going to come in at number 8, moving on to number 7. Now, coming in at number 7, we have Tech Vegito Blue and STR Rose. A super hype time to be playing Dokkan during New Year's of 2017/18. And what wasn't to love about these banners, man? First of all, STR Rose's banner got refunds because Tech Super Saiyan 3 Broly's Dokkan Awakened art was incorrectly placed on the banner, which is of course illegal. STR Rose probably led the most seamless team in the game, as he supported all his extreme class allies by 3 key 50%, and he did some awesome damage, and he was the first Rose with a scythe in the game, and boy did he whip that thing. Pause. Obviously he's a Rose unit, so he's got really good links, and he along with Vegeta Blue led the extreme and super class teams, which were dominant teams in their own right. STR Rose was kind of like Cooler, STR Cooler, the TUR, before he came out. And of course, there's Tech Vegito Blue, who is just one of the most dominant offensive units in the game's history. Stacks attack on defense on his super attack, and then he just does damage, right? He's got additionals built into his kit, and he builds up attack with each attack formed. Obviously, he's a Vegito Blue, so even though he doesn't have to prepare for battle, he still's got pretty good links. The superclass team was, you know, potentially the best team in the game, whether you wanted to argue the superclass team or Super Saiyan 3 or some other category. But yeah, I mean, Tech Vegito Blue, STR Rose, I feel like these are some of the most infamous units in Dokkan history. I just feel like you don't really have to argue why. I just think it's pretty straightforward why they're so hype. And honestly, you could argue that they're a little low, but they're going to come in at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Now, coming in at number 6, we have Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Physical Omega Shenron. Obviously, Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Physical Omega, I've talked about them a lot. We kind of all know what they do. Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta obviously has the 70% chance to counter the enemy super attack. He's also got a really good super attack effect for the time. They, of course, began the category meta with Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta leading the fusion category, and Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was just one of the best units in the game, right? He could only really be hurt by super attacks, and he had a 70% chance to counter them, which, oh my god, it felt free to get that counter. It felt like stunning when he got hit by a super attack, which honestly it was, hey, 70% chance. I mean, those are really good odds. Obviously, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, so he's got really good links, and then of course Omega was no slouch at all. Shadow Dragon Saga was a solid category, right? And I mean, it was okay, since it was one of only 2 categories in the game, I think it was. And of course, he did really good damage. He lowered all enemies' attack and defense by 20%, and he had a, 15% chance to launch an additional super attack, which was pretty good for the time. I know it's crazy to say that now, but hey, it was good. He had some really good links, and the Shadow Dragon Saga team was pretty good. Honestly, that's probably the best the Shadow Dragon Saga has ever been. Maybe it was a bit better during the 7th year anniversary, but like, oof. The main reason I have them higher is because this was the first joint celebration between Global Dokkan and JP, which of course had the player base very, very excited, getting a unit, especially a super hype unit like Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, at the same time as JP Dokkan. Quite literally a novelty. And while some negative sentiment overall derived from the celebration at the end of the day, it was still a really good celebration that had everybody excited, global and JP players alike. They're gonna come in at number 6. Number 5 is to be released. Now coming in at number 5, we have LR Namek Goku and LR AGL Full Power Frieza. Overall, just some really, really hype units. This was the first time that Namek Saga was getting some of the really awesome representation since I believe STR Namek Goku came out, which was one of the best regular monthly Dokkan Fest banners, celebrations, and units to have ever released. LR Namek Goku was a very good unit, top 3 for sure. LR Full Power Frieza, top 2 for sure. Some really superbly designed units. Namek Goku was a little weak defensively starting right away, but you know, he stacked defense, so eventually he could be very, very good, even though he kind of fizzled out with the red zone meta, which while he was solid in the red zone meta, he didn't dominate the red zone meta contrary to popular belief, but he was good during it. I honestly think Full Power Frieza was hurt more by the red zone meta than Namek Goku was. But overall, they were just some very good units. Obviously, Full Power Frieza did a ton of damage. They both had built-in additional super attacks after getting hit. They did guaranteed crits when facing the other type of enemy. Namek Goku and Full Power Frieza built up Ki and got attack when there was an opposing class enemy. Full Power Frieza was dominant for the first 6 turns, and Namek Goku, you know, he eventually got up to par by stacking his defense and his attack on his 18 and 12 key super attacks effects. They both had some really cool active skills, you know, the Bakayaro and the you must be killed by my hand. And overall, the celebration was super hype, right? Everybody was very excited for it. Namek was long overdue, you know, the original Super Saiyan, just a long overdue moment to get done in the super hype animations. And this is overall where this celebration right around here where I originally started my YouTube journey. And I have a lot of unlisted videos on this channel from this time, but that's going to be LR Namek Goku and AGL Full Power Frieza. They're going to come in at number 5, moving on to number 4. Now coming in at number 4, we have of course the 7th anniversary, which is one of the best celebrations in Dokkan history. And while the 7th year anniversary LRs were super dominant, they of course began the 200% category meta. They also did not dominate their meta that hard. Obviously they were the best units in bar and away, but they were not the nigh unkillable units that every anniversary prior and probably since has felt like. Now these are some of the most infamous characters in Dokkan history, so I'm not going to really go over their kits, but rather talk about how they were perceived. Now of course these are some of the most successful banners in Dokkan history. I think they sold the 2nd most, or they grossed the 2nd most in the history, behind the Blue Fusions, aka they made a boatload of money as they really didn't have any terrible restrictions or stupid hindrances that restricted them from their full potential. And I also think it helped that Red Zone was so hard that these were the only 2 units that were really like able to compete with Red Zone. I feel like that also benefits them. But I also don't feel like that leading up to the anniversary, like there was as much hype as anniversaries prior. Like for sure, I definitely think that the Blue Fusions leading up to that celebration was so hype. I mean, people were excited from when Gohan and Cell dropped for Gogeta once he was rumored to be the figure, aka basically confirmed to be in the anniversary. I feel like people were much more excited for LR AGO UI Goku and LR Evolution Blue Vegeta of the 6th year anniversary because we had been getting so many super cool Tournament of Power units during 2020. And overall, for me personally, they would be 3, but of course, this is an algorithmically based list, so they come in at 4. I mean, there's nothing bad to say about them. Super hype, everybody loves them. They're about to get their EZA in like, what, 4 short months, and they're gonna probably just dominate the game. Everyone's gonna love them again. It's gonna be great. They're gonna come in at number 4. Moving on to number 3. Now, since this is an algorithmically based list, and even though I wasn't playing for the release of these 2 units, when the algorithm and myself looked at some highly advanced statistical analytics and scrutinizing over Dokkan lore and the ancient history of days past, this is where we ultimately decided that Physical Vegito Blue and AGL Rose belonged. Now, of course, they released very shortly after they were in the anime, and of course, you know, Dragon Ball Super when Vegeta was showing up, kicking ass. Everybody was super excited when he fought Zamasu, and seeing Vegeta Blue in the game shortly after like that would have just had me opening my wallet and maxing all my credit cards to get this guy. And you have Rose too, and he's really good, and Rose was doing his thing in the anime. Like, whew, you already know that this celebration had to be hype. People were very excited when these two came out. They quite literally took the Dokkan world by storm, and they certainly lived up to the hype. They were amazing, pretty much flawless units, you could say. Maybe besides their leader skills, you know, the type 3 key 70% meta was going on, and maybe you didn't want to bump down to the 3 key 50% type class teams, but even still, their teams were really good. They were really good. They were dominant, super good, super hype. They're gonna come in at number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Now, coming in at number 2, we have the original Dual Dokkan Fest between Blue Gogeta and Full Power Broly. Again, these are some of the most successful banners in Dokkan history. This is where the community, from what I could personally see, and the algorithm personally calculate, this is where the community was just over the moon excited. Everyone wanted to know about every single leak and every single part of what was going to happen with Blue Gogeta and Full Power Broly. Everyone low-key felt that it was coming for New Year's, and the Broly movie honestly heavily overperformed, I'd say. Even though everyone was expecting it to be good, I think people were even surprised at how good it was. And then these guys come out, you know, people were thinking that at one point there was 2 Gogetas coming out. There was going to be a text Super Saiyan Gogeta. It was a crazy time for sure. But when they came out, boy, did they just shake things up. They, of course, were the first units in the game's history to lead multiple categories at the same time. They had really good animations, especially Broly. They were designed immaculately well. They were far and away the best TURs. Some people were saying these were the best units in the game, which, hey, I think that's sicing it, but hey, they got it. This was personally the most satisfied I've ever seen the Dokkan community with a celebration ever. Like, I didn't see a single complaint out of anyone, anything. Everyone was just enjoying the Broly celebration. This was just, what a time to be playing Dokkan, to be honest. This is gonna come in at number 2. Moving on to number 1. And coming in at number 1, it is, of course, the Blue Fusions. I don't mean to be the Blue Fusions Glazer, but honestly, I feel like the Blue Fusions are just, dare I say, underrated? Like, it feels like people just forget, or maybe they just don't know how crazy the 5th year anniversary was. Like, I might be sizing it, but didn't the Blue Fusions get, like, top grossing 3 times during their celebration or something? Maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like that happened. Like, I've said it before, so I won't, like, you know, do the full ritual where I get down on my hands and knees and just glaze the Blue Fusions, but like, whew, when they came out, there was literally nothing to complain about. Again, we were all in the Kalen Khalifa meta, where we were all just living in Kalen Khalifa's world, and people were really sick of it. So when the Blue Fusions came out and everyone was just ready to kick them off the throne, and the Blue Fusions were worthy contenders, and their animations were just immaculate, the hype was immaculate. Like, when their animations dropped on that day in late January, and it's freezing outside, but it's warm in your heart because these guys are here, it's just surreal. Overall, the Blue Fusions are just fantastic, right? Like, they're just some of the best units, and quite literally the most successful units to have ever released. Of course, they also got amazing EZAs. They're still pretty good to this day, and again, there's just quite literally nothing to complain about. It might be crazy, but the EZAs might have done them more justice than their initial releases. Like, it's insane. They are far and away, okay, maybe not far and away, but they're definitely number 1 of the most hype. Well, you know, 10 of the most hype releases in Dokkan history. Now, if you guys really like this type of video, you know, I'll probably make a part 2 where we go, you know, over 10 more units that were super duper hype. But let me know what you thought of my list down below, whether you thought a unit was snubbed or you think that the order should have been different. I already know that as I'm recording this intro, a lot of people are probably going to comment Int UI Goku on global, which, hey, fair point. You want to see him, you know, part 2 question mark? I don't know. Of course, just know that, you know, if you disagree with the algorithm, you are 100% undeniably factually incorrect. But as always, that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for stopping by.